Welcome back everybody, how are you all doing? Right, today's video I am going to modify my Ace 250. I'll spin you around and I'll show you what I'm going to do. Right, there's the Ace. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify the headphone plug. Instead of it coming out here, I have the headphone plug up here. At the moment it's tied around the shaft and it's just in the way. It gets wrapped around and tangled up, so I figured I'm going to plug it in up here. And to do that, this is what I'm going to need: a stereo 1/4" headphone socket, a stereo 1/4" headphone plug, some wire, some insulation tape, a soldering iron, and a bit of patience. That's about it. I was going to put it in here. If I pull this plug out, I wanted it coming out of there, but the socket I've got doesn't fit, so I have made that little bracket, which is going to go somewhere on there. I'll figure it out as we go along, probably something like that, but I still want to be able to use the stand, so I'll work that out in a bit. So, right, on with it then. Right, before we start, I've got to work out which segment on here is connected to which pin, so that the wiring is right on this end and it's the same on this end. So with our multimeter, stick that on the end, and it's that one there. So that pin goes to the end one. So then it should be that one going to the middle one. That's it, and obviously that one there goes to the back one. So at least that tells our plug is working as well. So that's a good thing, right? And obviously that fits into there. Well, it won't do, but you know what I mean. So, and in the back of this, I can see which segment goes to which connector, and then I can work out. So the wiring is the same on this end as it is on this end, and we won't get it all mixed up. There's only 3 wires. The back one is the common ground for both side earphones, and one is left and one is right. I say it's a metal detector. It's not for using on a hi-fi or anything like that, so it doesn't matter if left and right are mixed up or whatever, but as long as I get the common in the right place, these two can go anywhere you like. Okay, right, on to soldering. I've got some fairly thin gauge wire, don't need anything thicker than that. Headphone cable would have done, same sort of thing as this, but I haven't got any, but I've got plenty of this, so that's what we're going to use. Right then, let's get soldering. I'll worry about that a bit later. Before I solder up the other end, I can slip that up the wires later, and same with that. So first one, I'll do the first one and then I'll stop the camera and do the rest, and I'll show you the finished product. You don't need to see me doing all of this. Okay, that's that one. Right, fire up the soldering iron. Okay, there's the first one, if it's going to focus. There we go. Right, I'll do the others and then I'll get back to you. Okay, there we are, that's all 3 wires soldered on now. Next step will be to insulate each one of these so they don't touch. and then it'll be on to this end. Okay, so there we go, all insulated up, and now it's just a case of screwing that onto there, and that's the first bit done. Next thing to do is plug it into the detector, run it down the shaft to where I want it, work out the length of the wire. I'll point out at this point what I've done here, because the wires are all pretty much the same colour. The one with the knot in it goes to the common, so I don't get it mixed up. Okay, let's get going. Right, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to take this sponge off, take this off, and I'm going to tape the wires to the shaft underneath the sponge, and then they're going to come along here, and all this will be wrapped up in tape, so it'll still be black and it'll look exactly the same as that, except the wires will run along underneath and they'll all be taped up, and then they'll come out under here, and I may even use that screw there to screw my little bracket onto. We'll have a look, we'll worry about that when I get to it. So let's take the cuff off and let's take the sponge off. Right, there we are, cuff is off, sponge is off. I'll do this one-handed. What I've got to do, I've got to tape this up, but I need to leave enough slack to be able to pull this out in the event that if I don't want to use the headphones. Obviously if I don't just unplug it at the back here, I'm not going to have any audio because it's plugged in here, so these speakers inside are not going to work. So I need enough slack in the wires just to pull that out like that, so that the speaker will then work inside. I could get a bit fancy and run 2 wires from there up to the switch in me, because it has got the switch in the back there as well. I could get trick and do that, but I'm not going to bother doing that. So I just need to leave enough slack to allow me to pull that back so that the speakers will work inside this if I don't want to use the headphones. Right, let's get on and tape the wiring into the shaft of the detector. Right, I shall be back. Okay, so that's where we're up to now. The tape is on there. If I turn it over, there's the plug coming out of there, and it's taped down the inside of the shaft, the bottom of the shaft where you can't notice it, and there's enough room for me to still back out the plug if I want to use the internal speaker. Okay, once the arm cuff is back on and the sponge, you would hardly notice that there was tape wrapped around it. Okay, so back on with the arm cuff and the sponge, and then we'll get on to wiring up this end. Right, here's where we're at now. What I plan to do is, using the original hole with a longer screw in it, is fix my socket there like that, and I can still use the stand by resting my spade in the ground onto that part. I can still use the stand, so that's what I'm going to do. I thought about putting it like that and over this side and on top, and I think the neatest place for it is going to be there. Well, when I was at work and I made this, I drilled 2 holes thinking, oh yeah, I'll just put it like that. Then I see that screw hole and thought, oh yeah, we could do that instead, so I'm going to have to drill another hole in the middle of there and put a longer screw in, and we'll have the plug like that, and I think that'll be quite neat. And I'll tape everything up. I've got some heat shrink somewhere which I'll put on as well, and it should all be nice and neat. Hopefully it won't get damaged when in use. I don't think it will. I can't see why it would, but time will tell anyway. Right, let's get on with it. Okay, so my bracket is on with a longer screw, and it secures quite nicely. I did have to break off this yellow thing on the other side, otherwise the bracket was leaning backwards. So this here, I had to break it off on this side so the bracket would sit flat, but it sits fine now. It's nice and secure. The socket is just loosely in there for now. I've got to put the nut on that end. I've already worked out where our common goes, and it's on this one here. So we'll get on now and we'll solder that one. And if you remember, that is our common one. So we'll do that one first. Okay, so there we are, all 3 wires soldered on. So now it's just a case of insulating everything up, get it all neat and tidy, put the nut on the back to secure the socket to the bracket, and then we'll give it a test. Okay, and there's the final result. Try to get a decent but there you go, it's well insulated. Hopefully try and keep water and crap out of it, And with the tape on there, you'd hardly notice that there was anything untoward. And the good thing about this modification, if you can call it a modification, because really all it is an extension lead, and if I wanted to undo it, I can, and there's no damage done to the detector. It's all still as it should be. You know, I haven't had the control box apart or anything like that, so if I wanted to undo it, I can. There's no extra holes drilled in it or anything like that. So yeah, okay, on with a test then. Let's see if it works. Okay, pair of pliers on the floor, detector is switched on, set to all metal, headphones on the table, wave the coil over the head. There we go, working, brilliant. More than happy with that, and that should keep my lead out of the way. Or I could go wireless if I wanted to, but you know, all costs money, doesn't it? And that has cost me nothing. The plug up in here was salvaged from an old microphone that I found in my toolbox at work, and the wire I got out of my shed. But I think these sockets are on eBay for like £2. I think the plug in there is only like £2, and a piece of wire you can get from anywhere, so it's a cheap mod for getting your headphone lead out the way, and quite a neat one at that as well. So there we are. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.